So, what if an AI could give you the perfect answer, but for all the wrong reasons? Today, we're going to dive into something called LawThinker AI and this fascinating problem where, believe it or not, the journey to an answer is way more important than the destination.
Sounds like a riddle, right? But in really high stakes fields like the legal system, this is no joke. It's a massive problem that researchers are trying to crack. Because it turns out how an AI gets its answer can be just as important, maybe even more important than the answer itself.
Okay, to see what I mean, let's look at a real-world legal question they posed to two different AIs. The question was, can you get back child support payments you've made if you later find out you're not the biological parent? I mean, that's a super complex, really emotional issue with huge legal consequences for sure. So here's the crazy part. Both AIs came back with the same final answer. Yes, but, and this is a big but, they got there in completely different ways. One of them took this weird, convoluted path, basing its whole argument on a law that didn't even apply. The other one, this law thinker, went straight to the correct legal basis. So you have the same final answer, but only one of them is actually legally sound. Wild, right?
And that right there, that's the heart of the problem. A right answer, but for the wrong reason. And in law, and in a lot of other expert fields really, if your logic is flawed, you're just plain wrong. It doesn't matter if you lucked into the right final answer. The process, the how, that's everything.
Yeah, the source material we're looking at puts it perfectly. A legal judgment built on an inapplicable law can be overturned on appeal regardless of the outcome. So think about that. The process isn't just a good idea, it's a hard and fast rule.
It's kind of like a student who aces a math test, right? Gets a perfect score, but they just guessed every single answer. The final result looks amazing, but the work behind it, it's totally flawed, completely unreliable. You can't trust the process, which means, in the long run, you just can't trust the outcome.
And this dangerous snowball effect, it has a name. It's called error propagation. You make one little mistake at the very beginning, like citing the wrong law, and instead of getting fixed, it just gets carried through every single step after that. It just corrupts the entire chain of logic. And for a lot of AIs out there today, this is a massive blind spot. So this error propagation thing is basically the AI's legal blind spot, which leads to the big question, how do you even build an AI that doesn't fall into this trap? How do you teach it to stop being a lucky guesser and start thinking like a super careful, meticulous researcher? Well, to tackle exactly that, researchers came up with this new approach. They call it LawThinker, and its whole philosophy is basically flipped on its head. Instead of chasing the right answer, it prioritizes getting the process right. The idea is that if you have a correct process, a correct and, more importantly, a defensible outcome will follow. So LawThinker works on this really powerful three-step strategy: explore, verify, and memorize. First, it goes out and explores. It gathers all the relevant info it can find. But then, and this is absolutely the crucial part, it verifies every single piece of information before it uses it. Only after something is validated does it get stored in memory for later. This makes sure its whole foundation of knowledge is clean and totally reliable.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit on that second step, the verify part. Because honestly, this is the real game changer. This is what makes LawThinker so different.
Okay, so at the very heart of this thing is a component they call the deep verifier. Just think of it like this relentless, built-in fact checker. It gets triggered automatically after every single piece of information is found. This is pretty much the secret sauce of the whole system. This deep verifier runs three really critical checks. First up, knowledge accuracy. It basically asks, hey, is this law even real? It checks whatever it found against an actual authoritative legal database. This is a huge deal because it stops the AI from hallucinating or just making stuff up, which, as you probably know, can be a real problem. Second check, fact-law relevance. So, okay, the law is real, great, but does it actually apply to this specific case? This step makes sure the legal rule is genuinely relevant to the facts at hand. And this prevents that exact kind of mistake we saw earlier with a child support question.
And then there's the third check, procedural compliance. This is all about following the rules of the game. Is the AI using the right format for a legal document? Is it following the proper stages in a courtroom simulation? It's making sure the AI's behavior actually fits with how things are supposed to be done in the legal world. So, with this super obsessive, multi-layered verification thing going on, does it actually work? Does it get better results? Well, the data says absolutely yes. When they put it to the test, LawThinker showed a 24% overall improvement compared to the standard AI models that just kind of go for the answer directly. I mean, a 24% jump, that is a massive leap forward. But wait, it didn't just beat the simple models. It also did 11% better than even more advanced AIs, ones that have a complex workflow, but are missing that hardcore verification step. It just proves that having a fancy plan isn't enough. You've got to check your work.
And this chart, it shows you exactly where LawThinker really shines. When you measure the quality of the legal process itself, things like following the rules correctly, it just leaves the other AIs in the dust. It's not even close.
So what all this data really tells us is that this AI isn't just getting lucky and stumbling on the right answer more often. No, it's getting the answer right for the right reasons. It's building this chain of logic that you can actually check, that you can trust, and that is legally solid.
So the results are in, and they're pretty darn impressive. But this whole idea of a process-aware AI, it has implications that go way, way beyond just the courtroom. Just think about it. In medicine, following the right diagnostic steps can be a matter of life and death. Or in engineering, sticking to safety standards is what prevents disasters. And what about finance or aviation? Checklists and regulations are absolutely non-negotiable. In every single one of these fields, getting the right final outcome is completely meaningless if you didn't follow a valid, safe, and compliant process to get there. And all of this forces us to ask a much bigger question about where AI is heading. As it starts moving into more and more professional fields, it's not just about what an AI knows anymore, it's about how it thinks.
What LawThinker really shows us is that as AI gets more and more powerful, the real challenge isn't going to be making its answers smarter. It's going to be making its process trustworthy. And that's such a critical reminder, right? For the jobs that matter most, the right answer is completely worthless if you don't take the right path to get there.